Hello everyone, I'm Diane, and today I'll be discussing the cosmological argument. The cosmological argument is common to run into since it seems to remedy a problem with the beginning of the universe. While people can figure out this argument on their own, it is likely that if you've heard it from someone who has given their beliefs some thought. However, it has many premises that fall apart once you break it down. I'll be going over the counter-arguments that I think are the most useful to bring up in casual conversation. But before we get into that, what is the cosmological argument? The argument has been around for a long time, dating back to approximately 300 BC or earlier. It tries to use a logical syllogism to establish the existence of God. An early, simpler version of the argument was used during the 9th and 12th centuries by Islamic theologians and goes like this. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe had a cause. This version is called the Kalam cosmological argument. The more complex version was made popular by Catholic priest Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century and goes like this. Everything that exists must have a cause. If you follow the chain of events backwards through time, it cannot go back infinitely, so eventually you arrive at the first cause. This cause must itself be uncaused. But nothing can exist without a cause except for God. Therefore, God exists. While this argument seems to follow the proper form of a logical syllogism, there are several assumptions it makes and things it overlooks. Since this is a longer, more complex argument, let's look at it step by step. Premise 1. Everything that exists must have a cause. This first premise is often given a pass since, as far as the average person knows, everything has a cause. Rain comes from clouds, chicken from eggs, things fall because of gravity, and so on. But this is just a broad generalization that sounds good, but in modern times doesn't completely hold up. Beyond just saying there could be exceptions, we have actually started to find exceptions at the quantum level. Virtual particles, which is a broad category, can pop into and out of existence. In a vacuum, we have witnessed these particles suddenly show up and vanish just as quick. As far as we are aware, there is no direct cause, this is just something that happens. All you need is one exception for an everything statement to be false, and we can produce one. So, from the first premise, the cosmological argument is flawed. Premise 2. If you follow the chain of events backwards through time, it cannot go back infinitely, so eventually you arrive at the first cause. Why can't it go back infinitely? As far as we know, time goes forward infinitely, so to me, it makes sense that it can go backwards infinitely. Whether you have an issue with that statement seems to all depend on what you think infinity is. While used in mathematics a lot, infinity is an idea, and there are lots of ways to try to define it. One I like is that there are an infinite amount of numbers between 0 and 1. After all, you can keep taking half of whatever you have. 1, 1/2, 1/4, 1/8, 1/16, and so on. But back to time, if we can keep going forward by 1 second, why can't we keep looking backwards by 1 second? Sure, there's a time that this universe started, but we don't know what happened at that exact moment or before that. There could be an infinite amount of big bangs and big crunches expanding backwards and forwards through time. There could be a first cause creator. But because we don't know which is true, the second premise of the cosmological argument is flawed. Premise 3. This cause must itself be uncaused. Why? The problem they seek to resolve here is that of infinite regress, or asking who created the creator, then who created the creator's creator, and so on infinitely. By stating that the first cause is uncaused, the infinite regress stops at the first cause. But just stating something doesn't mean it's true. Like the close related premise 2, this seeks to answer a question to which there is currently no honest answer. When used in a logical syllogism, it makes the whole argument flawed, and thus the third premise of the cosmological argument is flawed. Premise 4. But nothing can exist without a cause except for God. Wait, what? Premise 1 is that everything that exists must have a cause, and now, without explanation, God can. That refutes itself. You can't claim everything when making a foundational point of your argument and then later go, okay, there's this one thing. Logical syllogisms must be consistent in order to be valid. This premise violates that rule, and therefore the fourth premise of the cosmological argument is flawed. Premise 5. Therefore God exists. No. In summary, the cosmological argument is an argument that appears to follow the form of a proper logical syllogism, but is actually deeply flawed. Infinite regress doesn't currently have a solution, and saying, I don't know, is the honest, valid response to why is there a universe? Knowing how to recognize logical fallacies is a useful skill to have since you can counter arguments on topics you may not be knowledgeable about, based on their logical validity alone. At initial glance, the cosmological argument seems like a solid argument to use and is why it can be common to run into. However, like most apologetic arguments, it quickly falls apart under scrutiny. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd like to take the time to shout out my Patreon supporters. I can't properly express how much your support means to me. The names and icons you see on screen are the people who pledge $10 and up. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Diane Discusses. For parrot pictures, I'm Diane Discusses on Instagram. If you have a topic you'd like me to discuss, feel free to message me or leave a comment below. Until next time, I'm Diane, and I hope you have fulfilling discussions.